Today, I interviewed Samantha Rowe. She's the CEO of International Erosion Control Association. And I don't know if you know this, Samantha, but my college degree was in environmental conservation. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
I got a little
Well, if you need
excited.
a next act, you can always come to erosion
Okay,
sediment
well,
control and
I'm going to be
stormwater. So
going to Colorado after the holidays, so I might have to stop by and see you.
please.
I'm your host, Marla Moody, by the way. I was in the nonprofit sector for 36 years, and I have transitioned to become a coach so that we can make the workplace as good as we can be so that we have health while we're still reaching our goals. So let's get into it and see what works. So, welcome, Samantha.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me to be on.
Today, we want to talk about building buy in. I was really impressed with that, Samantha. And then we'll move into staying healthy as you're working. But the
Sure.
concept of building buy in, I want to just take a broad view of that first, and then we'll kind of wind it down. But when you're really trying to get buy in from your board of directors or others, what would you just even describe that if you had to talk about it?
So for me, buy-in has always been very important. In my career, I've worked in different areas, which actually really worked to my advantage. But I always had to create a group around that was buying into the things that we wanted to do, no matter which area I was in. I came to IECA 7 years ago. When I came in, I was told the clear, true facts of what was going on and where they were. And they were in an okay place, but they were kind of looking at what the next phase was going to be for the organization. So when I went in, they have a really great dynamic in the fact that they have the kind of the elder statespeople of the organization, but they had a very young group as well, and it was kind of half and half. And for me, I always joke that I was kind of the bridge between the two. So I was trying to capture the value and what drove people to the organization and to be a part of it and engage, but also to look at the future of where we're going. Because in all associations, as we know, every day we're dealing with new kind of predators to what we're doing. And so what is our value? And it's not just about tomorrow, it's 20 years from now. So for me, I really had to come in the first few years and kind of look at it from that long game of I can't come in and change everything right away. I really have to look at what needs to change in the short term and those wins, and then also kind of where we needed to go. Some of that came from the board, but a lot of it came from, for me, just going to members and talking to them. Before me, they didn't have someone who had an association management background. They went with someone different people in different areas. They went the route of someone from the industry that didn't have that. So this was new for them. It wasn't overnight. It was definitely a process and becoming a known entity and becoming someone where I had a consistent record. So through that time, there were always ups and downs, but we've gotten to a place that I think is really exciting, and all of the groundwork that it's taken to get here has been worth it. And but it really is having the one-on-one conversations, understanding the people, the motivators, and where they're coming from. I like to say it's kind of like the island of misfit toys. Everyone's special in their own way. People don't necessarily come from a bad place, they just come from what they know. And so it's a lot of hand holding, of understanding that what we want to do, or what we really need to focus on, is going to be there for the long-term health of the organization and elevating an industry that's been established. The organization's been around for 54 years, but we're still in our adolescence with our impact and what we can do, both in the industry and the impact for the world, especially with the climate constantly changing and things happening. So there's no dark side to our industry, so we're there to really do the best we can do.
Wow. What I like hearing is when you came in as an observer, you came with your
Mhm,
eyes wide open and
mhm.
saw what the situation was, but you observed first and you were the link between different generations. And you
Yes.
mentioned the word value and that the what are the short-term values and the long-term values. So you led with vision
Mhm.
because vision always starts with values, and when you can connect values, young or old, new, been around for forever. How did people grab on to the values that you communicated, especially for those short-term changes?
Sure. So in the short term, when I first started, it was coming in and realigning resources because we had the staff, we had things, they just weren't aligned in the most productive way for the organization. So by coming in and focusing more on those areas versus coming in and saying, "Oh, we have got to change strategy," or those other areas, it helped me to kind of solidify the base, the framework of where we were before I then started saying, okay, now we need to make some other changes. It was also important that I brought in some consultants at different points and different people to help modify structure and to give more of a vision as we move forward. When you have people who've been a part of something for a long time, even though they may be open to change, change is hard. And so it's really the baby steps of it and getting those little wins and having people feel that you care and you understand and you're protecting what they value as you're trying to do that. With nonprofit boards, you have people coming on and off at different times. You have different motivations, different skill sets, and different personalities for sure. So it's always a dynamic because you can get turnover over a few years, or you can just keep getting the same people on. And it's again realigning and trying to kind of pull them away from what they were comfortable with being a part of in the earlier days.
When do you know when to bring in a consultant and when to do the change just from within?
Sure. I think for me in the beginning, part of it, I was very hands-on as a CEO. I've done every position in the organization in previous roles. I'm not here to do the role, but I was here to coach. But we're a smaller staff and there needed to be realignment. As we see a lot of times in nonprofit management, people don't necessarily go and get educated in it. They kind of fall into it. And so it's aligning those and getting people really focused in that area. Certain things, it was easy for me, but certain things I needed that outside voice. Sometimes, as we all know in this industry, unless you bring in a consultant, you can tell them all day long. And then suddenly that person comes in and it's like, oh, did you know about? And I was like, I've been telling you about that for 2 years now. But it's just that constant push and pull when you're dealing with boards and what they are responsible for or what they want to feel as their achievement and trying to move them in that direction. As I mentioned, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. If you try to cut corners, that's when I think you end up in the biggest issue. Also, as I mentioned, the long game, I really had to be like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. There were some decisions I made in the beginning that made some of the board members kind of panic, but it then worked out the way I told them it would. And so it made it a lot easier at that point.
When you think of a time when you felt a lot of resistance
Mhm.
to that vision going forward, what was that like for you?
I think sometimes it's stressful and you wonder. I always try to look at it from a perspective of, is this just me wanting this? Because I can't want something for membership that they don't want for themselves. I'm willing to fight when I know that it's something that's right and that is not. I always say I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm here for what's best for the entire organization. So I'm not siding with one group over another, or trying to elevate one over another. It's very much what's going to be good for the whole industry. Sometimes it is a matter of, okay, you have to kind of bide your time because you're getting through something when it comes to the leadership and what it is. But part of it is finding a different angle. And being able to back it up. I think that's part of the big piece. And also, how do they play a part in it? People, I think, will always gravitate toward it more if they feel like they have some sort of a part in this. If you don't include them, if you don't listen to their voice, that's when I think you get some disgruntled feelings and pushback. So, and sometimes it's even beyond, my my role. So it may be infighting on a board, or people that again try to derail some of the stuff we're doing. But I think it really comes from the training and development on the board as well. We're really trying to realign resources of both from a staffing perspective and from the board. We're just finishing a reunification of two regions for IACA, Region 1 and Region 2. And so I'm really using this as that stepping off point of, okay, so what we did, kind of what got us here won't get us there. And I think of that also personally as well. What got me here isn't going to get me to the next role or to the next level of what we're trying to do. Recently, I started the Wharton Executive Education Global C-Suite program, and I'm using IECA. And that's really helping me because I'm getting really great information and data that then is helping me on a weekly basis kind of bring the board along with me and with the information, so that then when we go into strategic planning session next July, we won't be walking into it cold. We'll have more direction and definition, and I think people will feel better about it.
So you're preparing really all year long for that
Mhm.
strategic planning, which
Yes,
is the way it should be. I think sometimes we get so busy and the strategic plan is we think it's important, but we don't act like it's important.
exactly.
So for you to be learning and teaching your board, like many of the elements I've just heard of how you build engagement. You
Hmm.
talked about you like you're taking the class, and I know people that take and they get that knowledge and they maybe live it out, but what you even said is you're bringing them along. It's a very
Exactly.
different way of doing it, and that you help give vision to each individual of how they contribute or the part that they play, so it becomes an active membership rather than more passive.
Sure.
And I can see where this long game, as you're talking about, takes just it's almost like building pebbles, just one after the other after
Exactly.
the other.
Exactly.
When do you look back and go, wow, I just built a really cool road, or we just built a cool, cool whatever, as you
Sure.
look
Sure.
back?
Well, right now is really kind of culmination of that, and it's so hard because it's kind of the same with my career. When I was doing certain things, I didn't realize it would actually be valuable later. And it's amazing how many random either jobs I had or experiences I had have come into play that have helped me in doing these things. And that's been really important. And it always helps with Wharton behind you, when you're bringing things from that perspective. As I mentioned with board members, you get people that have different levels of experience, both life, industry, on boards, things like that. A lot of times, when you think about how much time you're spending with the board, it really isn't that much.
Mhm.
So I think before I would get more frustrated because I was doing a bunch of stuff in the background, but I wasn't really showing them what was happening. And sometimes we joke when it comes to technology, you just push a button and it works, right? So from the board perspective, they were just used to seeing things done. They didn't necessarily know my vision and know the direction we were going. When we would change to a different president, there was always that kind of lag time. Where we've come from financially, everything, it's really been incredible. I think sometimes it's easy to forget where we were, and the more productive and impactful we are, the more we want to do, of course, but it becomes more of pointing out what we're not doing versus all that we have done, the evolution we've already achieved. But I'm really hoping that a lot of the structural changes that we've made and alignments and where we are financially are going to bolster us. So as we finalize the reunification in beginning of March of 2026, that we're really going out strong. We're really much more focused and aligned, but still in the evolution stage. So we're still looking for feedback from the chapter board members, from the chapter members as well, and our members, so that when we go into strategic planning, it's not done in kind of an echo chamber, but it really is compiling all that information so that when we go in, we can really be strategic and we're not just trying to figure out what sounds good. And also something that isn't just going to be put in a drawer. and forgotten about. It really should be that roadmap that everyone is using and the lens through which we're identifying everything. One of the things we're going to have is a trade-off matrix. I think that's really important. We are a small staff, as I mentioned, and I've worked for associations that had staff of 35 to 50. We're doing many of the things that they do, but we're doing it with fewer people.
If you wouldn't mind, I was intrigued when you talked about the trade-off method. That seems like a really healthy way to have a discussion with not only board members, but different people who might be more visionary. Could
Mhm.
you explain how that's been a value for you?
Sure. I just started it through the Wharton program. It was one of the modules that we started and really effective with a volunteer board, especially. And when you get people who are in leadership. So our presidential terms are 2 years, and our current president is going into his fourth and final year. He wants to have had an impact. He has a vision. He has things he wants to do. But it's really about aligning those resources and going back to what is the role of the board versus what is the role of staff, and creating that delineation of who you're tasking and what we're doing, and taking the personal impact out of it. It's always hard when someone comes up with an idea, and when you say no or you're trying to adjust, it's not because you don't like them, it's because of resources usually. So I think if you put it in that framework, then they understand we're at capacity with this. Here's where we are financially, and here's where we are capacity wise, and also impact. There are a lot of things we want to do. One of the things that the trade-off matrix talks about is we are going to do these things. We're not going to do these things. It's very difficult. And when you're dealing with humans, you're dealing with emotions as well. And it's really finding that balance of saying, this is your impact and what you're doing. So while I know you want to do these things, in order for that to happen, it can't be a staff thing. It's going to have to be someone's pet project on the side. But then that also, is it worth taking away from the other things that we're trying to do to service our members and not overwhelm the staff and really have that impact? And sometimes it's not a matter of no, it's a matter of not now. And we have to make those decisions. I always like the idea of doing things in sprints. So we actually see some value and get some wins, because some of these things, it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of decisions by committee and wanting input. And sometimes you go out and members, they say they care, and then you say, tell us, and we don't hear anything.
The tools I've heard you talk about, one is a framework around give and take. We can't do it all, so let's have a frank discussion, starting with values, to have side conversations to help each person know what their role is, being a liaison between different groups. Do you have any other tools in your belt that you tend to use on a daily basis, especially when it comes to buy-in or moving things forward?
Sure. I think for me, the biggest thing when it comes to buy-in, it goes back to those personal relationships, and having those one-on-one conversations, so that then when you're going in, these things aren't coming up for the first time, especially in a board meeting or in a committee meeting, whatever, that you have some backup of them understanding what's truly behind it and what you're trying to achieve. Each person, from my perspective, I approach individually. I meet them where they are. I know kind of where maybe sticking points are for them, or what's holding them, and sometimes it's having those board members then working with the other board members to helping them understand. It seems to me, in my experience, there are always kind of those navigators that, whether they are the president or not, have a pull with other board members who are setting a tone. Sometimes it's a good tone, sometimes it's not, and trying to work around that to make it effective, and going back to putting more training and development into board members as well. The way I look at it is, I am here as long as it works for both of us. I want to achieve things. I want to see what we can do in this industry. And at the point where it gets too burdensome because what I'm trying to push forward is not what they want, I'm not here to push something that they don't want, but if they want something that I don't necessarily think is effective or I can help them achieve, then I need to start looking at those other directions. But I think for me, when I look moving forward, it is training the executive committee, having them understand, giving them more of a training at the executive committee level. So we're all on the same page. And as we move forward, we're more productive. I always feel board members get on for one of two reasons. Either they like the leadership and want to be a part of it, it's worth their time, or they don't like it at all and they want to change it. I really try to maximize their time. I don't want to just have a call to have a call. I want to be more strategic with what we're doing, but it is that consistent evolution as we go. Part of it, I use the changeover of leadership from the presidential level to kind of do a reset. Basically, I chose Fort Worth with reunification as this is the culmination of reunification, and then we're hitting the next phase. And during this time frame, we've had a new website launch and a database upgrade. We have staffing turnover, as everyone tends to have. And that's, again, evolution. We're not going to always have the same people forever. And, you always wish them well and want them to go on to good things. But it also then gives you that opportunity to look at what you need to move forward and how you can be the most effective.
Makes sense. As you're having these one-on-one calls, do you have specific questions that you ask or specific objectives when you go in to have those one-on-ones?
I think you really have to start out not having an objective and creating the relationship, because if you go in too quickly and that's all it is, then it's a very shallow relationship. Then they always feel like you're only coming to me because you want something or need something from that perspective. When I first started, annual conferences, I was so busy and pulled in a million directions. Yes, you're with the board members, everything, but you're kind of moving from one thing to the next. I really try to go to as many regional conferences as possible because most of our board members are connected to one of the regions. It gives me both time to talk to members and be a part of the education and see what works, what doesn't, get more understanding of the industry and pain points, and have those conversations outside where we're developing it. I've been fortunate in the fact that because I have these certain relationships, that when I do need something, I can call and then have that shorter conversation of like, here's what's going on. This is what I need. And they're more likely to jump in and do what I need from that perspective.
But I do want to just underscore that because it could easily be, with as busy as you are, with as much as going on, when you sit down with the CEO, they list the impossible tasks that are on your shoulders.
Mhm.
So to give intentional time to picking up a phone or going someplace, spending the time that you could be doing other things,
Mhm.
the capital that you're building certainly outweighs it. But boy, I, I'm gonna say it because I think it's really tempting to make those conversations either not happen or the distance between them are so long that that building of trust, knowing how they might respond, feeling like you're an available person, it seems like that's really paid off for you.
It has. I mean, that to me, it's been the most valuable piece. And I even say for members when they go to conferences, we can do education online all day.
Mhm.
But what you're really getting from associations is that community and connection. It's the conversations at night. If you're going to a conference where people are staying there, the luncheons, the after hour drinks, whatever it is, it's being there. And when people are not necessarily on and they just want to have that conversation, and the more that they know that you care about them, that you understand them and what you're trying to achieve, they understand maybe that bigger picture, then you're planting those seeds again of being able to get to the point that you're trying to get to. So before IECA, the longest I was at a job was 6 years, and I've now hit 7, and I feel like I now feel like I'm moving into that next phase. And every year I go to region 2 was Australasia, or is is and was Australasia, and that's Australia, New Zealand. And I started going to their conferences every year in October. And I make the effort and I go and I'm there. I'm fully there. I'm not just going and hiding. I really enjoy them, and they were region 2, and now they're back with under global IECA, and they feel more confident. They know I care. They know that I appreciate what they do, and a lot of times I use them as the example to other chapters, understanding that they basically were a region on their own for 10 years, so they're at a little different development level. But what they're doing and what they're doing from that regional space is really impactful. I'm not married and I don't have kids, so for me, if I didn't believe in what we're doing, it wouldn't keep me going during the stressful times as much. So,
Yeah. So let's real quick before we finish up, switching to that. I'm not going to even call it a balanced life. As a CEO, I don't think that's even the right definition, but a
sure,
healthy rhythm, knowing when to do what so that you have the mental, physical, emotional capacity to keep
sure,
going. We, talked about us being single without kids. There's a temptation, there's nothing stopping you from working early hours, late nights, because you don't have to go home to walk the dog or to, feed the kids.
exactly.
And so there's more freedom and yet I think more liability of potential burnout. So I'd love for you
Absolutely.
to share your thoughts on that.
We had someone who had been here for over a decade who left, and she left a big hole, and she was fantastic. And at that point, things shifted, and we were also going into this shifting as well as we're trying to set the stage for this new chapter. So that started more pressure of, okay, finding the person to replace, and again, making those adjustments, moving everything around. I really had to look at it from a perspective of not necessarily the balance, but making sure that I was during these heightened times that I'm taking care of myself as well. So making sure that I started going to 5:30 a.m. hot yoga, which I thought only sociopaths did. But it did change a lot of things for me because I would get up, I had to be there by a certain time, and it really set me for the day. And then I was in a better place as I then was doing things because it wasn't in the back of my mind sitting there that I need to go, or later because you're exhausted by then and it suddenly doesn't sound that exciting to go to. But watching what you're eating and all of those things, because it really is, you go down the rabbit hole on some of these things, and it is all consuming. And I think for me, the biggest thing that's helped me keep going is that right at the point that I'm like, is this worth it? Things finally start to come together. And that's when it is worth it. And you see the value of it. When we had the website launch and the database upgrade, technology isn't always our friend, and there are always little things that happen. What I tried to reassure both the board and the membership is that we're we're strong. We're gonna keep moving, but we can either limp along and try to avoid every single issue that can arise, or we can kind of pull the band-aid off and go in and do these things and realign it so we can move forward more effectively and really be looking at an exciting future.
Yeah. Well, thank you for choosing to do things that you're caring for yourself. And even as you were reassuring, it's like technology can happen. You led with calmness. And leaders will so often, when we're not caring for ourselves, there
Yes,
comes a time where we can't lead with calmness because we've we've given it all away. And
absolutely.
so having those times, that early morning, it's like it becomes a non-negotiable.
Exactly.
Where other times a day, it's like what is non-negotiable because it's the thing that's going to get pushed out otherwise.
Exactly.
When I was overseas as an operations leader, the office was also where I lived because it was a small office. We only had 6 people in the office. It was the area office, but it was only operations people there. And so even then I really had to be careful of that. And what became non-negotiable is getting on my mat every day. I
Yep.
needed at least 10 minutes, even if I didn't feel like it, stepping on that exercise mat was my way of saying, even if I step on there and slept, if that was like, I don't care, but it needs to be 10 minutes on it, But that changed a lot for me, for all of us to use this time of year to just kind of evaluate and say,
Yes,
what are those habits that I want to continue? What are some tweaks I need to make? What does it look like for you to evaluate how you're doing, what tweaks
sure.
you need to make, things like that?
I think for me, if I can compartmentalize it into a time frame, then I
Hmm.
can get through it. If certain things were going to be going on for the next 5 years, I think it would be a different piece. But with all the changes we're doing, we're refreshing the magazine, the branding, everything. I have this vision, and I have to be in it in this time frame to hopefully get it aligned. I don't plan to be here forever in this mode, and that to me makes a difference. And in finding time, I went into a really busy travel time and all of these things, and while I was taking on additional roles within the organization to keep it moving as we were dealing with staffing issues, I didn't want to let go of the piece of being at those conferences and being available and having those conversations. Also, what kind of revitalizes me is our members. And when I go to these conferences, this is what it's for. When we hire people, I always say, you're going to go to annual conference. If at that point, I mean, it's going to be tiring and a lot of work, but if you don't enjoy it, if you don't come back like, wow, this is why we do it, then you're in the wrong area. I think that's very important. If I didn't get something back from that feeling of, yes, this is what we're moving toward and this is why we do it, it would be much harder. If you could compartmentalize it and get through, and really, it's easy to forget the small wins. So easy to remember all the things we didn't necessarily do exactly the way we used to do it, but it's also helping to get people on your side of, we're trying to turn a boat and it's going to take some time and it's going to take everyone. It's not going to be always pretty, but the end result is going to be something that they should be very proud of and make them feel like it was worth it. I remember I had LASIK about 20 years ago, and the doctor said, "You're going to forget you ever wore glasses." And I was like, "Not," or contacts. And I was like, "Not a chance." And then 6 months after, I forgot what it was like when I would forget my glasses or forget my contacts and that type of thing. That's what I'm hoping for, is that they see that. And I've had some really great conversations with members that it was maybe the first time I was able to connect with them, but they've told me that they've seen a real change over the 7 years of my leadership, and how they do appreciate it. So,
That has to feel good.
yes, definitely.
That's wonderful. I love spending time with you. Thank you, Samantha.
Well,
Is
thank
there
you.
anything you want to end with?
Sure. This role is a very isolating role. You're basically an island, and different times you'll find you have different allies that then maybe aren't as much allies in a different level.
Hmm.
But to me, a lot of it is human nature and dealing with that, and going back, I have other friends who are CEOs of trade associations and different groups and things like that. Everyone's kind of dealing with the same issues, maybe at different levels at different times, but just finding people that can understand what you're going through and having that as an outlet is helpful.
Yes.
And again, taking care of yourself. It can't always be everything about the organization all the time, even if it's taking something small every day that you can say you did for yourself or whatever. It doesn't have to be, I always say, progress over perfection.
Finding a community, finding those little wins, like you mentioned. Don't ignore those celebrations. Care for your body, both, yeah, both what you eat and how you move, and being around people that encourage you. So those are all
Exactly.
really healthy patterns. So thank you, Samantha, for this time. And I do look forward to more conversations with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.